Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to talk about materials that I found to be easy when I started tying, easier to work with when you can't use your hands. And there's just going to be a few tips. So first, start on a bigger hook. Your fly doesn't have to look like anything in particular. Just start on a bigger hook, figure out your thread tension, your proportions, and then once you feel comfortable, then you can kind of scale it down. So you can always tie bigger. When I first started tying, the first fly I tried to tie was a redfish riddling, and I got pretty frustrated because there was a lot of stuff on a hook, and I didn't understand the proportions quite yet, and some of the material was hard to work with. But start on a bigger hook than you would normally do, just to practice. Doesn't have to look like anything. Figure out how to wrap the material, how to tie it in, and you can progress from there. I have nymphs that are tied on a size 6 because I wanted to learn how to tie them, so I started bigger to where I could figure out the proportions, how to tie in the materials, and then I scaled it down. So I have a bunch of material here laid out in front of me. One of the first few ones are a synthetic fur, pseudo hair, craft fur. I got a couple packs of pseudo hair here. You can also do craft fur. So this craft fur, each you can get in a lot of different colors. So I have pink, chartreuse, I have tan up here, tan. And this is the Rainey's Premium Craft Fur. I found it to be a little easier to work with because the fibers are so long. And same with pseudo hair. The fibers are long, so when you're learning to cut it, it doesn't all fall apart when you're trying to handle it and tie it in, because handling it and picking it up can be kind of frustrating at first until you figure out how to do it. The next material I'd have to say would be like root beer chenille, ice chenille, anything on a cord. This Galaxy mop. The mop material can be kind of frustrating because it might roll on you, but stuff like cactus chenille, ice chenille, Palmer chenille, polar chenille can be easier to work with because it's on a cord. It's not going to unravel. And then you can figure out how you can wrap it on the hook. And like with Palmer chenille, you can figure out how to coax the fibers all to the back. So anything on a cord is easier to try to learn with, especially when you have no pinch. You can't move your individual fingers to hold on to the stuff. So chenilles like ice chenille, polar chenille, they're easy to learn with because you can use them on a whole array of flies, and you don't have to worry about it all coming unraveled. You don't have to worry about if you don't put enough thread tension and it slips out, then you don't have to worry about all your material falling down in front of you and frustrating you. Other stuff like this flat diamond braid can be a little trickier. It can unravel, but usually if you can get it tied in, then you can palmer it forward and make a nice underbody. And like I said, your fly doesn't have to look like anything in particular. I have flies that I did for practice that look like nothing, just trying to learn how to palmer the stuff on the hook and tie it down properly where when you go to tie it down, everything doesn't unravel or twist the wrong way. And with another material, this material can be a little trickier to use, but Senyo's Laser Dub. It can be tricky, but the fibers are long enough that you can kind of do with what you want. And it's a great way to figure out dubbing, because other dubbings like Ice Dub, which are going to be different lengths and can be messy to use and kind of frustrating. So Laser Dub, I used a lot of it when I first started on a lot of my bass patterns, and I'll use it on trout patterns as well for underbodies. And then you can try to use a brush. I don't have any up here to show you. Here's a piece of one. This is a 3-inch Foxy brush. Can be a yes and no for trying to learn with it, because you're going to have to get your hackle pliers on it, and then you're going to have to pull these fibers back as you're wrapping. So it can be frustrating. On the redfish riddling I had to use a 1.5-inch Foxy brush, and I remember being frustrated with it because I didn't have a good ramp built up with thread, so every time I'd wrap, it would just fall down from where I wanted to have it tied in. So it can be tricky to use, but it's also a good learning point to learn how to palmer the material forward. So anything on a cord, I would suggest going there, especially if you have no hand function, just to learn the techniques of it, how to tie it down, how to wrap it, and start on a bigger hook. There's nothing wrong with having some flies that are tied on a bigger hook. They don't have to look like anything. You're just learning the technique of it. And then once you figure out your proportion sizes, how to properly tie the stuff down, then scale down. When I first started, I never thought I would be able to tie anything smaller than a size 1/0. And I'm down to size 16 dry fly with my hands. So it is possible. You just take some time, take your time and learn how to do this stuff properly, and then test yourself. See what you can do next. See how far you can go. Some flies that would be easy to start with, something maybe like a woolly bugger. Can be kind of tricky wrapping the feather, but it's a pretty basic pattern, with some of them just being a few materials. Clouser minnows, again, learn how to use bucktail. This bucktail is very versatile. You can use it in a lot of different patterns, but it can be slick and it can be hard to cut. So learn how to use bucktail, but Clouser minnows are a good one. You can do a whole array of different things for body material, for colors, for sizes. So find a pattern that you like that's not a whole lot of materials and is not materials that are super complicated, like using copper wire and stuff can be kind of tricky until you learn how to use your hackle pliers, learn how to tie the stuff down. So find a pattern that you like and you want to learn how to tie, and start on a bigger hook. And then once you get good at it, tying on a bigger hook, then start scaling it back a few sizes. So this was just a few of the materials that I think would be easier to use. They were easy for me to start with my hands the way they are. So, and another thing, when you're using like craft fur and stuff, see if you can find a plastic comb, like a lice comb. So with this, it's easy to get between your fingers and hold it where you can brush out your craft fur. You can brush out your fly, and you don't have to worry about trying to hold on to this and brush, and then the brush is falling out of your hand. So this is always something good to have. Other than that, we'll do a video on some of the tools that I found useful. Not so much as brands, but kind of sizes. Thread, again, I wouldn't start with anything crazy. Danville 210 flat wax is a good place to start, because you can put down a lot of thread tension and not have to worry about it breaking. On a first few of the flies I tried using a 70 denier, and again, it was really frustrating. I would get a fly looking good, and then I would put too much tension and I would snap the thread, and I'd have to go back and try to catch it before everything unraveled. So you're gonna get frustrated doing it. Just try to push through it and keep practicing. With more practice, the better you'll get, the more proficient you'll get, and the better your flies will look. So next week we'll talk about tools, and then after that we'll get into some more tying. Right now I don't really have anything I can tie, so I wanted to kind of give some tips on how to get started. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments and I will respond. I want to try to help more people in my situation learn the art of it if they're interested, and learn how to do the stuff. And once I get the stuff for my GoPro, I will do casting tutorials, how to cast a fly rod from a fly chair, and some of the tips that I have found to help me. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I'm really trying to grow it and get out there. We will be doing fishing videos before too long. I'm just trying to get a few things left for my GoPro, and then I'm going to go out and do some fishing. So that'll be something to look forward to. But until next week, y'all have a good one. Practice your technique. Get proficient at it. And you'll be amazed at what you can tie with no hand function. But I hope y'all have a good one, and I will see you next week.